Hi, and welcome to Stamp with Ginny. Today I'm going to share with you how I made this lovely faux silk frame using the Rooted in Nature stamp set and coordinating dies. So let me set this aside and we'll get started. Okay, I've got my frame and I've actually taped my little holder on the back of it because I tend to lose these, and so that way it's all in one place. I'm going to take my plastic cup and I am going to pour some white craft paint in it. And then I'm going to take my crumb cake re-inker and I'm going to start with 4 drops. And I'm going to stir this up with a popsicle stick because that's what I've got laying around. And what this is going to do is tint my white paint a little bit so that it's the color I want. I'm going to add another 4 drops to that, because I'd like it a little darker. And let's see where I'm at here. Okay, that's more like what I want. I just want a slight hint of brown, or making that feel a little warmer. I'm going to add 4 more. That makes a total of 12 drops. Okay, so I'm happy with that, and I am going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to start by laying a coat of paint onto my frame with my paintbrush. And as you can see, that kind of gives it a warm, antique-y white feel and not so stark white. And you're going to want to do that on all the edges. This dries fairly quickly, so now that I've got the top area done, I can do the sides. Okay, I've got the sides and the top done with the first coat, so I can smooth that out, make sure I don't have any drips, and then I can set that aside to dry for about 5 minutes, and I can add a second thin coat on top. Okay, my frame is dry and I'm ready to move on to my next step. I'm going to take my copper shimmer paint and I'm going to create a shimmer mist, and you can find my tutorial on how to do that on my YouTube channel. And I am going to get ready to spritz my frame. So I'm going to protect my surface, and I want to make sure I know where my spritzer is pointing, and I am going to spritz my frame lightly. And I can add several layers of this depending on how much of a shimmer I want. I just want that hint of shimmer to show through. So I'm going to allow that to dry, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, for this next step, I'm going to take a piece of white tissue paper, and this is going to be oversized, so this happens to measure 10 by 14 inches for my frame. I'm also going to be using my Crushed Curry, Cajun Craze, Mary Merlot, and soft suede ink pads for this project. And I'm going to be using this on all the images. And then I'm going to be using my Rooted in Nature stamp set for my leaves to give me that fall feel, and I've got 4 of them here that are the different designs, and a couple of texture pieces from the Timeless Texture stamp set to give me a little bit of organic shapes. So let me set this aside and we'll get started. Okay, this tissue paper is a little larger than the screen I have, so bear with me. I am going to start with my first image, which is the Timeless Texture, and it's just the random dot image, and I am going to stamp this around my tissue paper randomly. You want to cover the whole tissue paper, keeping in mind you're going to be doing this with all the colors. And then I'm going to move on to my Cajun Craze. And as you can see, I'm not cleaning in between, so that means you definitely want to start with the lighter shade first and work your way to the darker shades. And next I'm going to do that same process with the soft suede. And now finally, the Mary Merlot, and I just love this new color. It's so rich and wonderful for our fall projects. Okay, so now that I've got that randomly stamped, I can move on to the next image. And I'm going to do the same thing with my little coffee stain image here from the Timeless Textures. And of course you can cover this center area, but keep in mind when you're laying your frame on here, that's going to be part of your negative space. So I've got the Timeless Textures done, and I'm ready to work with my leaves. I'm going to start with the largest leaf first, and I am going to move my leaf around the tissue paper. Of course you will want to change the direction of your leaf so that it looks more random. And then I'm going to go to my Cajun Craze and do the same thing. And we're just building a collage, so you want to build the layers as you see fit and what makes it pleasing to your eye. On to the smaller leaf. Same thing. And I am trying to stagger the colors along with the pattern. And as you can see, I'm overlapping these leaves so that I get depth and texture. I hope you can see this starting to form that wonderful collage. And I'm going to use the 3-leaf pattern now. And of course, as you build these, you want to start doing a few less of the larger images on the top, moving on to the next color, and finally the Merlot. And once again, I can lay my frame over the top of this, decide I want to put more color towards the center or the outer edges, whichever you prefer. Now I'm ready to move on to this fun little image. And so as I've done this, I can see I need more towards the right hand side here. So I'll try to fill in those gaps with this little leaf that way. Of course, turning it and moving it so that you've got a leaf that looks a little different each time you stamp it. Now I have this pretty full because I wanted lots of fall color, but how much color you put on it is up to you. At this point, I'm ready to use this piece of tissue paper, and here comes the fun part. You're going to take this beautiful collage that you made and you're going to crinkle it by balling it up, pulling it apart, balling it up again, pulling it apart again, and crimpling it multiple times. You want to make sure that that tissue paper is nice and worn and has this crinkled look to it, and this is part of the reason why you need to start with such a large piece of tissue paper. So I am ready to bring my frame in, and as you can see, it has that pretty shimmer to it. And I did it on the frame because, of course, if I had sprayed the tissue paper, the ink would run. And I'm going to pull this out and get it where I'd like it to be. More crinkles, less crinkles, however you want it to get it to the size of the frame itself. Okay, I'm going to take and set my tissue paper to the side. I need my paintbrush again, and this time I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid adhesive. And this is a messy stage, so if it bothers you, you'll want to wear some gloves and protect your work surface. So I have simply taken some of the multi-purpose glue, and I have put it liberally around the frame, and then I have taken my paintbrush and spread this out so that it covers the entire frame. And that might need to be done a couple of times so that you get a good even coat. So I'm going to add a little bit more because I do want this good and sticky. And there you go. I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to run it around the inside here to give it a little bit of adhesive there. And of course, the outside edge also. and you should be able to use the excess glue in your paintbrush to do this. If not, just squeeze a little bit more on and spread it around. And of course smooth down the front. Now at this point I'm going to let this sit and dry. Our multi-purpose liquid adhesive is a two-step adhesive. When it's wet, it's permanent. When it is dry, it's like a post-it note and tacky. And that's what I'd like, it to be tacky. So let's give it a few minutes to dry. Okay, now that the glue has dried, I'm ready to move on. So I am going to set my tissue paper on top of my frame and kind of place it where I'd want it to go. And then I am going to gently press down. And of course, the point of all that crinkling is so that you've got all this texture. So you don't want to smooth it out too flat. And you can lift it up and even crinkle it some more if you'd like, so that you've got some overlapping. So I'm going to do some of that here simply by adjusting and lifting so that I've got some creases and so forth. And once I've got that, I'm ready to smooth it down with my fingers. There we go. And now at this point, I want to take my scissors and punch a hole in the center and then gently cut an X in the center. I don't want to get too close to the edge of the inside of the frame because I want to be able to wrap that around. And so I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to gently pull this up on the outside edge of the frame, tacking it up against that adhesive on the side. And if you need to, you can add a little more adhesive, just being careful that it's not too wet. Okay, I'm adding a line of adhesive around the side here so that it's got something to grip to, and I am going to allow that to dry since I didn't get the sides as well as I had hoped I had. Okay, I'm going to finish pulling my tissue paper down on the sides. And then I'm also going to continue on the inside here by pulling this in. And you might need to pull these little pins back so that you can get to that easier. And pat that down until you're happy. So I'm going to finish that and I'll show you the next step. Okay, to make the back of the frame look nice, I am going to take a piece of crumb cake cardstock, and I've measured this to fit the back of the frame. So it measures 7.5 by 6. And then I'm going to take the piece of paper that came with the frame and I'm going to set it in the center here and simply line it up so that it looks straight and trace around it. And what this is going to do is this is going to give me the opening so that it fits over the opening in the frame. And then if I need to adjust it, I can. I've got that traced on there, and I'm going to round the edges with my envelope punch board just so that they are nice and they don't catch anything. And then I'm ready to cut this center section out because this is my waist here. So let me take my paper snips and we'll get started. I'm going to fold it in half and then simply cut along that line. And I'm going to cut the pencil off because I don't need that, and that way I don't have to worry about erasing. Now this is going to give me a nice neat back once I adhere it. Okay, I've got that part removed, and as you can see I have this nice frame, and because I've got that little hole in the back of the frame that I need for that peg to sit in, I am going to take my circle punch and I am going to pop that on the bottom so that little hole will show through. And let me show you what that looks like when it's finished and on the back of the frame. There you go. I can set that on the back of my frame and then simply adjust it as needed and adhere it down with my multi-purpose liquid glue. Here's the finished frame again. If you'd like any of these products, feel free to stop by my online store. You can get there from my blog, Stamp with Jini. And if you don't already have a local demonstrator and would like a catalog, email me your name, address, and phone number, and I'll be happy to mail you one. Thanks for joining me.